So freedom was more complex to me than just a number in your bank account or finances, like strictly finances. There was a bit more to it. To be free in mind, movement, and money. So like when you are free to be who you really want to be and truly know yourself and have goals that are aligned to you as a person and not someone you're looking up to on Instagram or someone you've got on a pedestal. You need mental freedom to be free. If you're not mentally free, you'll never be free, no matter how much money.
All right, Jason, I'm so excited to talk to you today, man. You have so many cool things that you've been working on. I know you have a book coming out, and it's all about freedom. And freedom is something that I think is really cool to talk about. Tell me what motivated you to really take your experience and put it into this mode of getting it out to the world. Like what is driving you, and what kind of put you in this position?
Well, yeah, I mean, freedom, I guess, seems to mean different things to everyone, but really what I've seen, so I was in a position where I was 29 years old, I didn't need to work anymore, right? And I'm sitting at home, I start networking because I start feeling a little bit, I'm sitting at home, my wife's out of running errands or whatever to get out of under my toes, and my kids are at school, my friends are at work, and all the rest of it, right? So I sit there for about 18 months, and I'm starting to feel a little bit. You lose kind of fulfillment, I guess. You want to feel up to something, So I started networking, and I started networking with primarily entrepreneurs, people who are creating loads of great businesses, up to great things, and I'd have conversations with these guys. And they were amazing at making money, but none of them seemed to have any. And then I was also meeting people who were like born into wealth, so their parents had loads of money and they were like building a business, but they had no purpose whatsoever, no drive, really struggled to identify themselves, and they were miserable, and so they had loads of money but were miserable. And then there was people earning loads of money that had no money. And then there was like people who were very spiritual, they knew themselves really well, they were doing what they love every day, but they weren't earning enough money, and they were kind of stressed because they could never slow down. And it was like what is freedom? So freedom was more complex to me than just a number in your bank account or finances, like strictly finances. There was a bit more to it. So I just observed, what was going on. I kind of wrote down everything I'd done from age 22 to 29 to try and help these entrepreneurs after having conversations with them. And I kind of came to the conclusion that it's all, to be free in mind, movement, and money. So like, when you are free to be who you really want to be and truly know yourself and have goals that are aligned to you as a person and not someone you're looking up to on Instagram or someone you've got on a pedestal, and not to have any kind of memory baggage and events that happened in the past that stop you from taking calculated risks into the future and they're holding you back. And, you've got these kind of emotional inefficiencies that are holding you back. So you haven't got this mental freedom. You need mental freedom to be free. If you're not mentally free, you'll never be free, no matter how much money you get, because someone will always tell you how to spend your money. So there was that. And then there was like, once you know who you are, how do you organize your life so that your vocation and the way that you generate income to have the experiences that you want in life comes from doing something that is aligned with who you are? So like your vocation, your job, your income should be a fair exchange to provide services to someone in something you enjoy and you would do even if you wasn't being paid, ideally, and once you have a job or you're building a business, being able to delegate all of those uninspiring tasks that you don't want to do and you shouldn't be doing, and focus on high value and all of that kind of stuff. And people weren't really getting that right. That's why they were slaves in their business. And then the financial element was just like the icing on the cake. Financial freedom is like having enough, how much time you can buy into the future should you ever want to stop, if you want to stop. Because for me, people who are mentally free and doing what they love, wherever they want, with whoever they want, they never want to stop. They don't subordinate to like this idea of retirement. It's just, you just want to live and do things. And if you can get paid to do what you would do anyway, that's a massive bonus. So the financial element's kind of the last piece in the puzzle to me. And that's what I kind of mapped out and stuck in the book. And the great thing about those three things is they're all measurable. There's strategies that you can work on to enhance all of them. And I think it's really important. I think you become the best version of yourself when you are free, when you can think clearly, you're poised, you become a voice of reason, you can support more, care more, give more, create more, solve better problems. So that's what Always Free is all about.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just from a correlated mindset, when I left and started my business in 2016, my company was called Freedom Street Partners. And I built it all around freedom. So when I was developing and building the idea of what I wanted this business to be, I had worked for another company for 15 years, loved loved what I was doing, but felt like I was being held back from what I wanted to accomplish. And I looked at all the things that we had access to here in the States that I felt blessed for. It was like, hey, I could just open a business. I could come from nothing and be financially free. I could create relationships out of nothing. Like this was just the ultimate freedom of creating something from nothing and building it to something great was so alluring and interesting to me, that I wanted to put freedom in the name. And but it was so overused and so hard to
Mm.
find. And my at the time, one of my partners who was working with me, she had come in and she was like, "Hey, listen, I think I figured it out. You're going to call the business Market Street." And I said, "I'm never going to call it Market Street. I have to take the market out of everything we do if we're trying to build a business. I need it to be about freedom." And I at that moment I was like, let me Google Freedom Street, and Freedom Street did not exist. Like there was free. It
Wow.
was open on Google. The website was available, like everything. And I
Wow.
said, done. And it was really about the freedom to choose the path that you wanted to live. Financial freedom is super simple, and that's what our business was revolving around. But the reality was, financial freedom means nothing if you haven't defined what's most important in your life. Who are you
That's
working
it.
for? I mean, it's that simple. So we have to kind of go outward. You have to work on life before you work on wealth. And so many
Totally.
people get it backwards.
So I was in Dubai in 2023, and I was sat on a yacht, and there was this guy. He was saying, well, there were all these kind of. There was a couple of billionaires, there was a few millionaires, and they were really bitching and moaning about like their staff, what they were chasing next. And there was one guy who was like, right, the next goal for us is 50 million in revenue. And I was like, that's a round number. I say, what's why 50 million? And he's like, well, that's the next number for us. And I was like, that's a lot of sacrifice. You're probably going to have to spend some time away from your wife, your kids, maybe. And, what's it for? Anyway, it turns out that it's just to like prove some ex wrong or some old boss, and I'm thinking, wow, you're going to go through all that, like, sacrifice today's happiness for tomorrow's profit just to please and appease someone else who doesn't care about you, their thoughts. You're a slave to their thoughts. And when you hit that number, you probably won't care anyway, because it doesn't mean anything to you and it's not going to make you happier. And I just remember thinking, this is great. Like I felt like the most successful person there, because I said to him, and I kind of said it as a bit of a shock to him. I said, I've got no goals. I said, I've got no aspirations whatsoever now. I said, if I live every day like today, I'll die a very happy person. And it's all because back in the day, I worked on life first. I had an idea of where I would be content, so that when I hit it, I was like, this is what I wanted. This was my dream. And now if I want to go again, I can, but at least I'm content where I am. And I know, that I'm happy now. I don't need to chase the next thing. And I think it's a really privileged position to be in. It's easier than people think to be in, but people just don't give themselves permission to actually think about what's important to them. And keep up with the Joneses, that whole thing. Which is crazy. Why did you feel at your last, the company before, what was restricting you? What didn't you like?
Leadership. I think it was
Right.
leadership. I'm an entrepreneur, and I build
Yeah.
and I wanted to build something that I knew would work better. And
Mm.
you know what? It was bigger than that. For me, I wanted to change the industry. I didn't
Right.
like the way our industry came at problems. Everything is transaction driven, and I've been relationship driven my entire career, my entire life. So if I build something around relationships, then I'm developing something that has depth. I mean, we sold our company in 2023, and a perfect example of this is one of the individuals that was in the final round of bidding for our company reached out to me the other day and just wanted to catch up. And we had a meeting today, a 30-minute connection. And it was like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? How's it going? Like, we created relationships in the process, even when we were dating. I'm using air quotes for the
Mhm.
listeners out there, because we're building relationships. We're not
Yeah.
focused on a transaction. I asked him about his health. I asked him how his family was doing. I remembered the connections that we shared because it was deeper than that. And I think for me, when it becomes about transaction, or it becomes about, just making money, it's so empty.
Yeah.
And I like to win. I do like to win at anything I do, and I like to make things better. So if I walk in somewhere and I think I can make it better, I want to make that impact. But as you were defining work and job, in my world, all I do is I shift that to impact. When I first started
Yeah.
my four parts, it was four quadrants, I called it. And then work and wealth was kind of the quadrant that I altered to impact later in my life. So I started to realize how empty that box was, and that it was never ending. It was, oh, we'll get to 10 million in revenue. We'll get to 20 million in revenue. We'll manage $3 billion. We'll manage. And it was all these bullshit things. Like you were describing the guy on the yacht.
Yeah.
And I mean, even when I felt pretty centered, it was still one of those things where I could find myself getting lost in a goal or a number
Yeah.
or a
Yeah. Yeah.
wasteful energy. And so
Yeah.
by shifting it to impact, I started to look at, how does this help other people? Why does
Yeah.
it help other people? Who is it helping? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, when you apply who, what, why, and where to every single how, at every single one of those boxes, you start to come up with a deeper thing. But to your point, Jason, I don't think most people go through life fairly numb, and they're not comfortable in the present moment. Someone
Mm.
asked me the other day, same question. They were like, what's your next chapter? What does it look like? And I said, you know what I'm focused really on right now is actually being patient, because I've never been patient in my life for my career. So I'm actually focused highly on the present state, letting what comes come, creating great relationships, and then doing this
Yeah.
podcast. I meet so many great people on this podcast that lead to other conversations, other opportunities, that it's just something that it takes a little bit of work, but it's definitely worth it. So long answer, but definitely I think what you were aiming for with the question.
That's, yeah. I mean, I believe like fair exchange rules the game, and I think if you're serving people, making impact in people's lives, that's. I think people overcomplicate money in general. Like we're the only people, humans are the only people that use money, so there's only one way to get money, and that's from another human being. We all know that's they put it into your pocket, and there's only two ways to get it off them, right? You either beat them at a skill, like play football, where in like a competitive environment where there's a winner and a loser, or poker or golf or whatever, or you serve them and there's a fair exchange and they pay you and everyone's got a good deal, and that's a much easier model. And you get fulfillment from that model as well. And if you just focus on the impact and the service, your income is directly correlated to the outcut, like the output that you provide, to the difference that you can make to people's lives. And that we were talking about football, right? People talk about like it's unfair, like nurses for instance get a low pay when they're saving lives, but there's not a morality thing with money. I think money is it's given it's given a bit of a bad reputation, but really it's the fairest game in town. It's there for the taking. It's there for whatever you provide value for, right? So there might be a nurse that saves one person a month, right? But on football, Ronaldo could fill out a stadium, really, really high volume, low ticket cost, but because he's impacting all of those lives, he gets paid proportionately to that. So it's not really morality. It's just literally directly correlated to how many people you serve and the difference you can make to their lives. And I think when you get your head around that, you become more excited to serve people at a high level. And that comes first, and the money's a byproduct. That's what the magical thing is when you get in a position where and this is what I experience, and this kind of proves the point, is I was in a position where I didn't need money and like any extra money. And when you don't need money, the energy that you give out, it's almost impossible not to earn more because people are like magnetized towards you. That's what I found. It's quite
Yeah.
magical, really.
Well, it's like food when you're no longer hungry. When
Yeah.
when I was starving, it was always about where my next meal came from, and when I say starving, I'm, again, air quotes. I was never starving, but I definitely did not grow up with tons of excess. When I started working,
Yeah.
I would go to my mom's and there'd be extra food and I'd grab some food in the fridge. I was eating leftovers every week as just trying to find my way around food. Now I go to so many dinners, I'm like, oh, it's another steak dinner at a top restaurant. And and you do kind of get to the point where you're like, it overflows. And my son and his buddy started doing these TikTok lives, and they started earning some real money. And his buddy got into it earlier and has earned real money, and has started to do extremely well. And so my son asked me to go meet with him the other day, and just to kind of guide him, because he doesn't have the best scenario of family structure, of advice. And I always come back to exactly what you're talking about, and that is money is simply a tool, and you can choose to use it or it will use you. And if you let it use you, you will find yourself unhappy and empty and beat up and chasing something that's not there. But if you use it the right way, and you keep it to some extent, I told my son something as simple as, dude, put away 20-30% for taxes, regardless of whether or not you need it or not. Put 30% in investments and spend 30%. And if you spend it, you're going to find you don't really want to spend that 30%. You're going to want to invest more. So then you're going to be more intrigued with earning it. And you have to, he's 19. I wanted to simplify it. I wasn't trying to like give him excess ideas. And I said, as part of the spending, that's also how you give back. So that's also how you impact people. So when I say spending, I mean, that's where you go take a friend out to lunch, or help support somebody, or build a business from scratch, or invest in someone else's TikTok business. And so we started to have these conversations, but it's fundamentally, that is something that when you grow up without excess money, your scarcity mindset is so strong. Like, I know for me, I was chasing it so hard because I was like, I need freedom. And it's not that. It's the opposite of that. It's the discipline and the focus and the serving that gets you there, not the other way around.
Totally. There's the irony is, people, when they are in that level of, I'll say, poverty, and I mean poverty in a relative way. So you're acclimatized to your home comforts, and now you're struggling to afford those home comforts now. Your brain goes into animal instinct, animal mode, and you cannot deal with complex situations anymore. You don't have the logical side of your brain that makes complex decisions and can focus, or has a great attention span. But the irony is, when people are in that position, a lot of them try to do the high speculation stuff, the high skill stuff. They're like, well, I need to learn how to trade, or I need to learn how to buy Bitcoin. And it's like, hang on a minute. There was interestingly, there was a study that they did in 56 southern cities in India, and they measured the farmers' IQ. And when there was a drought and the farming was low and they were struggling for trade, their IQ dropped by up to 30 points. And when the market was booming again and it was, everything was growing, up to 30 points increase. So it actually means that if your mindset can't keep up with the growth of your money, you will not be, your mind is what will squander the money if you receive it. So if you get lucky on Bitcoin, because you don't understand it, you will get rid of it pretty quickly. There's that saying, a fool and his money are soon parted. But the reality is, if, like, let's take Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin has only gone up. It's at all-time highs now. It was down here. It's gone up here. It's only ever gone up. And yet, how many people have lost money in Bitcoin? Like, how do you lose? You lose because your mindset won't allow you to keep the money because you don't understand it. So you need to start with the basics. Like you say, save. Most people don't save. Put something in some index funds or something, something very passive that's very, very calm, and you get your feet wet and your mindset can start to unlock. It's like, oh, now I've got 3 months living expenses in a very passive market. And then it's like, now I can think clearer. Now I could learn something else. And that's how it works.
Yeah, it's discipline. If we're talking freedom, we can't talk freedom without discipline. And it's the discipline of creating a system or a process that you abide by because you know it works. It's when you go off that system and you blow it up and you start, fast money goes fast. That's what you're describing. I mean, it's no different than fast relationships. If we have fast relationships and you're for those of you that are single and you have those super hyper fast relationships, they don't last and they're not the people you end up marrying. So it's because anything that comes that easy isn't going to be something you hold on to. And I think it's an interesting dynamic, but it's definitely the discipline that it takes to set a structure. I think for me, I found later in life that discipline equals freedom. That started with Aristotle, and it wasn't as simplified as that, but it pretty much is. If I create systems that I abide by, and I know they work, and they put me in a better place every single day. So when I wake up in the morning, I do the same morning routine. You know why I do it? Because I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I handle stress better. I have all these things that make me in a better realm for presenting to my day. After that, I'm good. But these are simplified things that I know work, and money's no different.
No, it's process over outcome. Anyone who's achieved anything great is a compounding effect, an exponential curve of process over outcome. It's just, if I do this, that'll be the result, and at some point there'll be an exponential curve in this journey, and that's really it. And you mentioned, like, rituals, routines. Health is the same. Like, everyone knows what you've got to do to lose weight, right? You just eat less calories than you burn, and that's it. You'll lose weight. But most people can't do it because discipline. With wealth building, if you save a little bit of your income and you spend less than you earn and you invest the difference into assets, you will become financially independent. There is no doubt about that, but it requires discipline. And you're spot on. What you've taught your son is amazing.
Well, it's a start. It's a start. And I think what I was most excited about is that when he saw a friend that had opportunity and something that was significant, he felt comfortable enough to say, why don't we go to lunch with them and you talk to him? And that, as a father, that was the real win to me. It was, okay, I want you to be next to me. I want you to show him what you know, because I know you know it. But I don't come to you very often for these questions. Like, it's always hard at when they're young like that. How old are your children, Jason?
Mine are older now, like 17 and 20.
Okay, mine are 16 and 19, so they're right in the same realm.
Exactly the same. Yeah. Do you know what do you know what worked for me? When my eldest hit about 16, 17, I've been using social media as a third person. So I would have maybe a disagreement with my son, or try to get him to see a point, and I couldn't quite get through to him. So what I would just go on my Instagram, and at this point his friends start following me, right? So they think I'm cool, and And I just go, I was talking to someone the other day and, they said this. And then I would kind of explain my answer on the social media. And then his friends would all be like, your dad's cool. Like, they'd like it. And it would be kind of an indirect way to teach him without being his teacher, because, none of your family want you to be their teacher, right? So, so that was cool, and now they're fully on board.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. When they first got Instagram, I went in, I used to make them put their phones downstairs at night, and I used to, I don't anymore, but when they first got it, I did. And I would
Yeah.
go on Instagram and follow all the people that I thought would impact their lives in a positive way. So if it were, soccer players that I felt like weren't just about the game, but were about
Yeah.
the work and the discipline, workout and health people that were talking about how to eat healthy, and like everything about just take the life box: love, impact, faith, and energy, quality relationships, good father son stuff, good treat your mom with respect, faith based stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I would just go on, and eventually I started to be like, Dad, are you just blowing up who are these people that I'm following that I've never followed? It took about a year or two for both of them, but they did finally get it, and most of them
Great.
they kept. So it does start to work, and it's fun. But what good is wealth? What good is money? What good is freedom if you can't pass that on in wisdom to the next generation?
I agree. I mean, I've tried to just lead by example as much as I can with my kids, even with like my wife, how I want them to treat women, and how I want them to respect women, and how I want them to take ownership for things and be accountable for things, and not judge things, and not see the good and the bad, just try to see an event for what it is, and don't look up to things, and don't look up to me, and be your own person. These are really important messages that I want my kids to understand, so that they can navigate life from a poised position, from someone who they truly are, rather than trying to please and appease me, because that's the last thing I want.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for parents, at least I know for me, is that you always know they're going to live their own life, they're going to make their own decisions, but watching them do it when there's a shortcut or an easier way, or a way to make it better, is really, really difficult. It happens in marriage
Yeah.
all the time too. I mean, it's not like our spouses don't tell us easier ways to do things and then we don't listen, or vice versa. I mean,
Yeah.
this is just when it's your craft. There are things. My youngest son started posting on TikTok, and he's like, Dad, I mean, I only got X number of views. I said, dude, do you know how many videos I've been posting to go from getting tens of views to hundreds of views to thousands of views
Yeah.
to sometimes 10,000 or 100,000? Like, it takes forever, and I'm still learning every day and still
Yeah.
pushing stuff out. And it's about the discipline, no different than when you train. But it's watching them kind of experience that pain and wanting to fix it, but knowing that they're having to go through it.
They kind of, it's like, you tell a kid to don't touch the candle because the candle is hot, they can't really fully appreciate that until they get burnt, and then they're
Right.
like, well, I'll never touch that again. So there's, I know it, kids are impressionable. We can teach them so much, but they do have to experience stuff. And I think the hardest thing as a parent is watching them struggle, and just letting them struggle, because you
Yeah.
have to, right, to serve them. And interestingly, I was talking about this earlier, my upbringing, I my biggest kind of perceived void as a kid was security. We didn't have money. We didn't have anything. My dad had left. We had like really struggling financially, no stability. So my highest priorities and highest values as I came into adolescence was security. And subconsciously, I've navigated my way through making money because that helps with security. And I like balanced, stable environments where there's no chaos. And that's very much who I am. But interestingly, when you have kids and you have everything and you want to help them, what they think was missing in their childhood was chaos. So they want that. So they try to make, problems because they don't want it easy. And it's such a fascinating life cycle. And, that I've had to go through all that as well. So, and then it's like, well, how much do you help them? How much do you not help them? And you just want them to have everything because you didn't have it. And it's crazy. No one gives you a manual to be a parent, but it's
No, it's very, but it's 100% true. And I think it's normal for people, when you feel security or have what you need, to sometimes seek chaos or to be a little bit self sabotaging. And
totally.
it's very, very challenging. And the younger we are, the more we lean that way. We're more likely to kind of lean into it because it's like, oh, it's just one time. I'll try this or I'll
Yeah.
do that. Or even though I know this isn't who we are. And sports have been really good for my family. I think the one thing that's kept my boys pretty grounded and us all aligned is our love for playing and being active like that. And
Mm.
so you can only make so many screw ups when you're really, really engaged and involved. And even in college, my son's playing soccer, like his 7 a.m. wake up call. Like they're training, they're eating a certain thing. They have to, 9 o'clock, they're exhausted. I mean, there's very little time for him to be the kind of college student I was, which was
Yeah.
not as I was diligent in school, but I was definitely having a very good time. So I definitely enjoy watching them grow up and enjoy watching them do that. But sometimes it is harder to say no when you have it versus when you didn't have it. My mom would say
Yeah.
no, and I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I would still negotiate, but I kind of knew there was just no way we were getting it because it wasn't extra to do it. But when I say no growing up, not anymore, but when I say no growing up, they'd be like, well, but why? And these are great, curious questions, because I said so, and that's not even a good answer. And I mean, it is a good answer, but it's not good enough. And so you end up being like, Dad, why are we not doing this? So
Yeah. It's fascinating, man. It's
it,
fascinating.
it is. I've been in situations though where my boys travel a lot with soccer, and one of my sons, we were talking, and I just gotten a credit card for when he travels, and I was like, listen, you can use this. Here's how you use it. Here's what you do. And I saw that, like, he was at like an ice cream shop and he bought a bunch of ice cream, and it wasn't a ton, but it was like he definitely bought it for like 5 or 6 kids. And the next day, I was like, dude, are we just buying everybody ice cream? And he said, Dad, a lot of kids on my team don't have a lot and their parents don't have extra. And I just thought if you were here, you'd have wanted me to buy them ice cream. And I was like, that's a, that is
Wow.
a
What do you say to
100%.
that?
First of all, he's right. He's completely right. And I know that he did
Yeah.
it with that in mind. He wasn't manipulating or using me. He was
Right.
giving me the exact answer that I would have told him to, because I 100% would have bought every kid in their ice cream if that were the
Yeah.
case. I'm not gonna eat ice cream and not let you enjoy it because your parents are in a different situation than mine.
Yeah.
So they,
Yeah.
they do surprise you with the good stuff too, with the money stuff as well.
They do. They do. My kids, we're similar to you. We've very much been a family unit. We don't have technology at the tables, no phones, no, all that kind of stuff, and we've always involved our kids in conversation. A lot of people seem to be kind of out of sight, out of mind with the kids. We've always encouraged them into the group, of friends, and brought them into conversation. And I think that's been really instrumental in the fact that they're so well cultured. They can hold a conversation. They're very well mannered. And I'm so grateful that we did that, and so glad that we did that, because it could have been so different.
So I imagine that it really it is interesting, isn't it? It's powerful to look back when you're I'm going to go back to our earlier conversation, when you're living in the present state and you look back on good things, and you're kind of looking at your kids, or you're looking at something, you can find gratitude in those moments. I mean, I just shared something that we're both grateful for, but
Mm.
we have to be sitting right here in this state, like, happy that we're here, knowing that we're in the right spot. And yeah, we're just kind of glancing back going, wow, that's really cool. And I'm sharing a part of the story. It's not bragging about your children. It's just saying I did the best that I could, and these are some of the things that have come about with it. And you end up feeling this really good feeling. And it's hard to do
Yeah.
that if you're constantly worrying about what you should have done for them, or how you should have provided them a different life, or what you're going to do in the future. Or It's just anxiety or depression, and you're choosing your poison versus present state.
Absolutely. There's no, as I say, there's no manual to be a parent, but what's important is you're congruent. So I think that's important, like telling your kids what you truly believe, and lead by example. I think that's really, really important. And as I say, to help them be confident. And the way that I think that you help raise confidence in kids is just to explain that they shouldn't look up to people. There should be don't put people on pedestals. I think that's really important, especially in today. You was just mentioning about the views on TikTok. What they're seeing is someone else with a lot of views, but they're only seeing half the story. Everything's half true. And
Right.
whatever someone's showing you, there's another side of that coin. And I think getting them to understand and dig into the other side of the coin to ground the situation allows them to become more confident, allows them to be more, I guess, just more happy, more happy with them, with their journey, and more grateful for their own journey. I think that's an important thing.
Well, it's kind of the nice part of being where you're at today. If you look at it, and what you were talking about is you built the business, you built the life, you found 18 months of kind of sitting around and feeling not as purposeful, and then you started to get out and network and build again. And you were
Yeah.
you were building, and now you've continued to do that. What are some of the fundamental things that maybe you talk about in the book, or that you've executed upon that next chapter, once you got out of that, once you got back into purpose and you started kind of putting yourself
Mm.
out there? Are there things that you highlight or talk about that are really important to that message?
Yeah. So aside from the kind of the three freedoms that I mentioned earlier, my approach to sharing all of this stuff, I watched a seminar, but it was recorded back in the 80s. I watched it in my early 20s by a guy called Stuart Wilde. I don't know if you've heard of Stuart
Mm-mm,
Wilde.
I have not.
He's not around anymore. He died sadly, but he ran this workshop called Master of Money, right? And you can go and watch it. It's on YouTube. It's about 110 minutes long. I've watched it over 100 times, and he opens this presentation and he says, "I'm going to be talking about money and this esoteric way of earning money." And he says, "I'm not going to talk about how you scratch and claw and compete and beat your neighbors up and all this kind of stuff, but instead you feel a sense of it all coming together naturally as a result of the love and the creativity and the outpouring that you're putting out into the world. And when you do that, people will be drawn to you and they'll climb in through the fences, under the doors, and lower themselves in through the ceiling," he says, "and they'll find you. And when they find you, all you have to do is have an organized way to bill these people." Right. And something resonated with me on that because it felt like such a lovely, effortless way to live. It was like serving people, giving away everything, really, really not holding anything back and coming from a place of true care. And as a result of that, people will find you and want to pay you, right? So when I started this whole online kind of sharing my stuff, it was from that place. I didn't need money, so I didn't need to, I didn't need any more money. So it was like, how can I create content where people don't need me after I've delivered the content? How can I give everything away, A to B, in this piece of content where they won't even have any questions? And that was the kind of thought and energy that went into my content. So the idea was I was never going to charge for anything. And what happened was it was magic. It was like I gave everything away for free, end-to-end solutions, and all of the videos, all of the YouTube, all of the thing. And because it was so transparent and so real that there was nothing negative anyone could possibly say, because it was like, this is real. Like, I'm showing you all my stuff. They started to go, how, do you do more? Do you coach? Do we do this? Can you teach me this? Can you? So being in a position I was in, I didn't then want to enslave myself in another coaching job, a job where I had to coach people. So I had to build like programs that would help one to many. And we started doing that. And we've built a phenomenal community just by giving everything away and then them paying to hear it again but just a little bit closer to me. And I tell them this, and they're very happy with it. They're like, yeah, this is. I just want, we just wanted that extra. It's all about. I think people pay for implementation because information's everywhere, right? So no matter how much you teach them, ChatGPT could teach them, but it's about building trust. So when they can spend an hour with you online, or 2 hours watching your videos, or 5 hours reading a book, you've built equity in that relationship where they trust you, and they're not going to go and search Google for another person to teach them the same thing. That they just believe that you're the only person that can help them now. So implementation is only going to be them going closer towards you to get the result, and they will then pay. And it's magic. The more you give away for free, the more money you earn. It's just phenomenal. There was
It
one,
makes sense.
the one video, we put out a video on YouTube in 2023, January 2023. After about 5 months, it got about 10,000 views. And then I was sitting in a pool in Dubai with the same trip, and it started going nuts, like 1,000 subscribers. And it's a 2.5 hour video, bear in mind, end-to-end solution. And my subscriber base, well, to this day, that one video has got me 700 subscribers per day, and it generated millions in revenue. Even though they didn't need to pay for anything after it, and it's just phenomenal, just amazing.
What was the catalyst? What do you think? What changed? What did you recognize that was the catalyst that changed from the original video launch to you sitting in Dubai in that moment?
It was YouTube gaining confidence in me as a creator, so that they could connect my searched video to the searcher. And I think it just took 4 or 5 months for them to see all of the positive comments, all of the kind of engagement on the video, the comments and everything. Also, what YouTube like to see is a creator who can command an instruction and the person actually does it. So things like, for this example, I created a workbook for the video. I made the video feel like a course. So I said, download the workbook in the description, and they did. It was a free workbook. I've got templates in the description if you want to download those. They downloaded those. Introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're watching from, and they did that. And all of these things. So YouTube had real confidence that I was an influential person. I think they started ranking my video and boosting it like wildfire. And as soon as that happened, I don't know if any of your viewers are doing YouTube, but there's a real great hack, for retention on your channel. If you create a playlist on your channel, if you click on the playlist, you'll see in the search bar in the URL that there's a long URL, but there's an and sign, or I think you call it a pound sign in the US, right? Everything that, including everything to the right, if you copy that, and then any video you share, so I could be, let's just say I'm on this podcast and it's on your channel, and I share this YouTube video on your channel. So I share this video, but I paste that playlist link onto the end of the video URL. What will happen is they'll see me talk to you. They'll get an hour of value from me, and then my playlist will be the next thing to watch. My whole playlist will be on the app, right? So any video you share, let's just say I share this video, and then you're going to go, oh yeah, you'll repost it. So all of your audience are now watching it. They click on the video, and my playlist is the next thing in the thing. I think it's really clever. It really helped with retention on our channel. It was a game changer. So if anyone's listening and is thinking about YouTube, I've got plenty of tips like that, but that's definitely a killer.
That's great. What are you working on that makes you most excited right now? What's the what gets you out of bed right now for the purpose? Anything in particular that stands out?
Yeah, I think consolidating my thoughts into this book so that they are measurable strategies that people can work on, and getting people to see it and make it click, and I guess getting that level of complexity out to people, to a wider demographic who may not have had access or may not have understood it before. That really excites me. And then being able to help change the lives of the people that read this book. That's really it. So for me, it's about, tiling the floor, papering the walls with this book as much as I can, wherever I go.
Isn't it interesting how when you write a book, how you have to become like you think that you could just put it out there sort of like I always say it's like my boys when they think about getting recruited to play at a higher level of soccer or whatever it is. They think that if they just play the best soccer, someone's going to see them and they're going to be discovered and then they're going to play at the highest level and this is how it's going to work. And this is when they're young, this is the mentality, right? And when you write a book, in some ways you're like, okay, I'm going to put the best stuff I could possibly put out there. I'm going to launch it. And then you're like, well, now I have to actually market it and I've got to tell everyone about it. And I've
Yeah.
got to talk about it so much so that by the time I end talking about it, I'm ready to write the next book.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's a lot of power in repetition. My greatest mentors, they've been saying the same thing for like 30 plus years, and they repeat themselves over and over
Over
again
and
for
over again.
30 plus years. I think a common trap that a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners fall into these days is they feel like they've got to say something profound every new post. Oh, I can't repeat that. Oh, I did that last week, or I said that last week. You listen to my mentor's podcasts and stuff, he just says the same thing. Like, I can almost mouth what he's going to say every
I-
week.
Is this
And
is this Stuart Wilde?
it's not, it's a guy called Dr. John DeMartini.
Okay.
And he was in, I don't know if you remember the film The Secret by Rhonda Byrne.
Yeah.
He contributed to that about the law of attraction, but he's a human behavior specialist, and he's just phenomenal. He's a phenomenal guy, and he wrote the foreword to my book, so I'm very grateful for that. But
Nice.
yeah, he's a great guy.
And so are you doing a ton of shows right now? Are you kind of getting out and getting the word out on the book?
I'm doing as many podcasts as my voice will allow. We've got a big launch party in London next Thursday, which is the launch day for the book, and yeah, just trying to push it as much as I can. And yeah, after that, I'll just be talking about the principles in the book, and everything will just be everything will lead back to the book. That's what I'm doing.
All right, so the book, let's pretend that the book's out,
Hmm.
and I think by the time we launch this, the book will be out. So we'll have a link in the notes, and we'll make sure everybody
Amazing.
that's listening can get a copy of the book.
Thank you.
What are some of the principles? Anything that you want to highlight to our listeners that you're hoping they get out of reading this book?
Yeah. So if I could kind of say it in a way that would resonate with the audience, here's what I'd say. If you remember when you were 7 years old, what was you doing at 7? Probably playing football, on your bike, getting an ice cream, all the things we've mentioned in this podcast. You didn't have a care in the world really until your mum and dad or your parents, they were like, it's in time now. You got to have some dinner. You got to have a shower, go to bed. And you used to think, when I'm an adult, I'll be free. No one can tell me what to do. No one can tell me what to do. I'll have complete freedom. And then as you've watched adults become adults, they move further and further away from freedom and further away from who they truly are. And what ends up happening is by the time they're in their mid to late 30s, early 40s, they start to have this regression, this panic that they wish they'd always done X, and they start having to reverse engineer their life, and they're in this kind of panic cycle. And this book, the result that I want the readers to get from this book is to, one, go back to that 7-year-old kid, be who you truly are, and give you strategies to figure out who that is, and then how to kind of reverse engineer your life so that you can become always free. You can build a vocation, you can build an income, you can start to understand how to build assets and buy assets that will allow you to achieve that financial freedom, but more importantly, live a life that energizes you to wake up every day. So in a nutshell, this book will teach you how to be 7 again, and remain 7 for the rest of your life.
It's a good age, and the book's called Always Free.
Mm.
And I think what's interesting about that is we can all remember what it felt like, to have that feeling and to be young and to be just free in that capacity.
Yeah.
And you're right. We probably all said to ourselves, one day, no one's going to tell me what to do and I'll be able to do this. And then you find yourself in a little bit of a rat race, but that's great. I think people will gain a lot of value from it. I think they'll enjoy following you Tell people how to find you if they're listening and they want to go beyond the book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So if you've got value from this podcast, I have a podcast called Always Free. The best way to find me is to go to alwaysfree.com, where you can get a copy of the book. You can listen to the podcast, and reach out to me on social media. Just be careful of all the fake accounts out there, because Instagram and what have you doesn't do a very good job with anyone in the financial sector, I guess,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, I love how the message is always free, and I love how your mentor is a leader in the law of attraction, and I love how those things come together, because the more freedom you have, the closer you get to living who you really are, what your authentic self is, and you put out that energy. It's inevitable to just attract everything that we want, and it's
100%.
so true. And I think it's much easier than people understand, and that message is one that everybody needs to hear. So, Jason, I'm grateful for you sharing it with us today. And it's been a great conversation. And I look forward to the launch. I look forward to seeing the book when it comes out.
Thank you.
And I'm very grateful for the time.
Oh, thanks, man. Feelings mutual. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.